So I'm finally joining the ranks of the online MGTOW broadcasters. And I guess the first question is why? Personally, I just dumped the last woman in my life, which is not a situation that I thought I would be in. I just want to make a disclaimer, first of all, that I'm sure this is going to be a terrible recording, but I'm of the belief that one of the most important parts of the MGTOW program, and really something that society needs to do for men in general, is to help people who maybe aren't in this yet to break into it, to understand that there is a community that anyone can join. So I'm sure this will be rough, but it's an open invitation to anyone who, like me, maybe has been following this for a few years and has not yet jumped in for whatever reason. Know that there's a spot open for you, and I'm happy to talk to you and help you in any way I can. But kind of getting into my story. So the last woman in my life, this is not a position I would have ever thought I would have been in. Personally, I'm very much kind of a beast of burden. It makes me very happy to be in service to another person, to really help them. Part of it, I'm sure, is that I was brought up Christian, so I still have kind of a, helping others mentality somewhere deep down within me. But also I've always been kind of the neighborhood computer kid, and so I was always helping fix up people's computers, teaching elderly people how to use their email, whatever the case might be. It's always been natural for me to help people, to learn, to teach people, to share things with people. And that's sort of, one of the top things I look for in a relationship. I want to share things and to, expose someone to genres they've never heard of before, or, try foods we've never tried before, just to get out there and kind of experience life. But this particular girl, like I said, is the last girl. There were so many things about her that made me want to keep her around. First of all, of course, she's just jaw-droppingly beautiful. It's just impossible to understate. And, had a mind to suit. She was very smart and understood, the whole feminism racket, especially because she's Canadian and she's kind of seeing the worst of it in her home country. So she sort of has a boots on the ground view of the situation. So she was, very well aware of that, seemed to be able to hold up her end in any political debates. She was even, seemed to have some aspirations. She was going to become a medical student. I believe her father had some kind of health problems, and she had decided that she wanted to be in the health profession, so that wouldn't happen to other people, which is very noble. But she would go for kind of months at a time without really mentioning any studying. Just sort of a generalized lack of ambition. Not that she had anything better to do, but, why bother doing anything interesting? And that's been sort of a theme throughout the girls that I've dated in my life. My ex-wife at one point had the same problem. She really worked for the government, basically, and she was content to sort of retire. She already had a career that paid enough, and that was it. That was the end of her ambition, and she would come home after work and turn on Game of Thrones or whatever crap she picked up on DVD, and that was the evening. And for me, that's just intolerable. Part of it is that I was very sheltered as a kid, so there's so much of the world that I have left to see. As well as just intellectually, I always need a challenge. I want to be expanding my horizons. And so to just come home after work and watch some stupid show, or to read some trashy quasi-sci-fi book where, she was into the whole, what do they call it, young adult fiction, the Harry Potter type books that are semi for adults so that they don't have to feel bad about reading childish drivel. That's sort of been the theme with a lot of girls that I've dated. And, it's one thing to go through this yourself, but then you look online and you see other people going through similar things. And far too many people reporting the same kind of trend, where it seems like especially girls, soon to be all people in society, but especially girls for right now, are really infantilized and can spend their whole lives just being children and never really having to grow up. And it's really not difficult to see why. With especially the last girl that I was talking about, she's gorgeous, and she even told me on a few occasions that, sort of her dream in life was just to become an escort or a cam girl or whatever. She could just be beautiful, and that would be her entire career. And for so many of the women in my life, whether they wanted to recognize this or not, they live life on such an easy mode that there's no point to even engaging something difficult. And that's the thing. Feminism tells women that they are so unempowered, that women are trodden upon in society, that they are chattel, as the famous quote goes, when women really have all the control in society and they just don't want to accept it. Because accepting it comes with responsibilities, and of course they don't want those responsibilities. And who can blame them so long as they can get away with it? So many girls, you talk to a modern girl who has self-image issues and doesn't think much of herself, and you find out that she also posts her tits on, Reddit's Girls Gone Wild, and gets 200 likes whenever she feels like having a little bit of self-esteem. She can just get that booster whenever she feels like it. Yet she somehow is trodden upon by society, and men are evil for sexualizing her, even though she can get her fix of it whenever she feels like. And slowly I started to wake up to the MGTOW message as I went through these relationships. And this last girl was just difficult because, it would make me so happy to be able to dedicate my life to someone else. Nothing would give me more happiness than for the patriarchal dream to be true. If I could just go out and club a beautiful woman over the head and, make the money for the family and she would bear my children and that whole nonsense, that would be a fine trade-off for me. I would gladly make that kind of sacrifice, to continue the species. That would be fine with me, but that's not the deal that we're getting. We don't get this world that feminism says exists, and we don't get this world that feminism claims it's building. If feminism really was about equality and women being equal to men and everyone shouldering their part of the responsibility, I would be a very happy person. I very much would love to see a world where, of course women are paid the same, but, where women have equal rights and responsibilities to men and people decide that they want to have kids. Of course, as a MGTOW, we recognize the biological difference between men and women. Of course, the woman would have to have the baby, but there's no reason why a man can't raise a child and a woman be the breadwinner, or whatever the case may be. But what we don't want is the situation that we've actually gotten, where neither parent stays home, where neither parent raises the child, where instead, and as much as I hate to, I've always been someone who for the longest time resisted sort of the libertarian lens of things. But really it is about people just thinking that the nanny state can raise your children for you, literally, that the state is a nanny that will raise your children for you because you're too busy working and you don't have health care, so you can't go to the hospital, so you have to rely on government subsidized medical programs for your children, and so on and so on. And so eventually I had to do the relationship calculus on each relationship. And I just kept winding down until I had this one person left. This one shining example of someone who I hoped would be better. But no. She just kind of goes along and is a crappy regular person like everyone else. And maybe to just sort of illustrate the point that I'm trying to make here, I had another girl who I was dating who was really bad about calling off dates. And there was a time in particular where she claimed that she needed to be alone because she was going through some things. Someone in her family had cancer. And so, of course I understand. I would rather be there with this person to help them go through it. But if they need some alone time, I understand that. But for the rest of the evening, she kept posting on social media. And she would post pictures of herself at Meijer getting alcohol and hanging out with her friends at her apartment, having a lot of fun and laughs and selfies of herself in the mirror, and just spewing out this constant stream of social media for her own personal validation. And it never crosses her mind to link the two together, that maybe, she's really emotionally damaging someone by claiming that she can't be with them at the same time that she is spewing out the stream of social media, which seems to indicate otherwise. It's the impetus is on me as the horrible man who thinks that he has some sort of a right to this woman's body. Of course that's my fault. It's not her fault for just being a dick to me in that circumstance. And, too many men are going through this kind of thing where women have all the power, they get all the validation, yet they bear none of the responsibility. And men are doing so much of the work and they just decide, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to provide your validation. And apparently I'm out of time, so I'll pick this up later. Have a good one.